Hey, today is Thursday, March 19th, and we are learning about how a mollusk is similar to a hamburger. So here's our hamburger bun. We've got two buns, and each bun represents a shell. All animals are not going to have two shells, okay? The only animals that have two shells is a bivalve. And it just so happens that our clam that we dissect, the freshwater clam, it is a bivalve. So that's why we're doing this example with the burger. All mollusks have bilateral symmetry, which just means that basically you can split them down the middle and you get mirror images. Okay? So with two buns, two shells, we're going to take the buns and we're going to line them with mayonnaise. The mayonnaise represents a part called the mantle. And both shells have a mantle lining them. And the job of the mantle is to produce the shell. Okay? Some of you asked me in class, like, how do pearls get made? Well, it's the mantle's job that makes that pearl. The mantle will actually put a layer of something called nacre all around a grain of sand that gets into the shell. And it will keep surrounding that grain of sand with nacre until it forms a pearl. And that protects the mantle from the abrasiveness of that piece of sand. So the mayonnaise represents the mantle. Okay? So now we're going to take our buns and we're going to put between them the other components. So again, since this has bilateral symmetry, what we do on one side, we're going to do on the other. So I'm going to put one of the buns down. So I'm going to pick the top layer up and I'm going to pick up two layers of lettuce. So the lettuce represents the gills. The gills are, and if you look at lettuce, you can kind of see lines in lettuce. I don't know if you can see that, but where's my camera? But the lines are called striations. And those are very prominent in the gills of all bivalves, the lining of them. And so it's real easy to pick out what the gills are. But what's on one bun is going to be on the other. So there's one, and again, there's one, and there's two. There's two pair of gills that are present for each, okay? So we've got a shell on each side. We've got a mantle for each shell. We've got gills on each side. On the very center, you're going to have a hamburger. The hamburger represents what's called the visceral mass, and the visceral mass represents the soft part of their body that contains all of their organs. And inside of this is going to be their circulatory components, like they have a heart. You're also going to see their digestive and reproductive organs inside of here. When you eat an oyster, what you're eating is this, which is all of their guts, basically. And that's why I don't eat oysters, because it's gross. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it between my two buns so that it looks like this. So now it's starting to look like a burger. Okay? Now it's got lettuce layered. So here's my lettuce layer on the bottom. There's the meat in the center, and then there's a lettuce layer on the top. If you notice, I've got like this black edge that's pushed out. That's the foot. That's what I'm calling the fat. So like if you eat steak, usually steak will have an edge of fat on it. So if this is a steak burger, the edge of fat represents the foot that kind of slips out between the shells. And the foot is actually attached to the visceral mass. So when I take this off and you look at it, you can see the very edge of it is where the foot is. Okay? Now if you also look, you're going to see another little part that's right here. It's got a little bit of brown around it. That's actually their mouth. This visceral mass has an opening at both ends. It's got a mouth and it has an anus at this end. So the opposite ends, the fact that the mouth and the anus are separate from each other, that tells me that this thing has a complete digestive system. Anything that has a separate mouth from anus has complete digestion. This thing also has open circulation because it's just a pouch with all their organs inside it, and all the organs are bathed in fluid. So the mouth, one of the ways that you can tell that this thing has a mouth is that it'll have these things called palps that lead to the mouth. And I told you in your handout that the palps are little onions, but I don't have any onions that are small enough, so I'm improvising, and we are going to use earrings. So these are my earrings I'm shoving in this. This is actually Play-Doh. So the palps are going to act like little funnels that cause everything to go down into the mouth. And if you can imagine, there's like a flap of skin. These are not actually hollow like this. They actually are supposed to be solid, but I don't have any solid earrings like that. So just pretend like they're solid. But these act like a funnel. And there's 4 of them because there's 2 basically coming from each side that lay down like this. They don't want to stick in there. Trying to push it in there. They go like that. Everybody see that? There's my meat. There's the mouth right there, and these are leading down to the mouth. Now, when I put the top back on, again, these will all kind of be flattened like this. Let me pick my burger back up. So now you can kind of see, where's the camera? So there's the lettuce on the top and the bottom. There are my palps, so that tells me that that side is where the mouth is. So if we do orientation, the mouth is always on the anterior side. So where you see the palps, you also know the mouth is present. Okay? Now we're going to take the top back off. So we've got, let me tilt this down a little bit. So we have our palps, and there's 4 of them. They don't want to stay put. You also are going to have pickles. So the pickles represent the adductor muscles that keep this thing together. The pickles are going to be on opposite sides of each other. So the pickle, they typically are found, let me see if I can get them on here, like this. See if I can show you this. It's hard to do this without it all falling apart. Hang on a second, I gotta hold it down like this. Can you see it? So the larger of the adductor muscles is called the posterior adductor muscle. It's usually at least twice as big as the other one. The posterior adductor is on the opposite side as the anterior adductor. The anterior adductor is also always near the palps. So where my earrings are, where those onions, that's what it's supposed to be, is onions. Where those are that lead to the mouth is where the smaller adductor muscle is. And I'm not doing a good job showing you this. There, I think that's better. So you've got the foot, which is this black edge. You've got like a burnt spot for the mouth that these rings or our onions lead to. You've got your small adductor, which is the anterior adductor. You've got your large adductor, which is the posterior adductor muscle. Now you also are going to have a line of mustard next to each of these adductor muscles. This line of mustard, if I can put it on here, it's going to be watery. Okay, I got it. The line of mustard represents the, what do you call it? The foot retractors. And there's actually I'm going to have to move some of these earrings because they're in the way. The foot retractors actually pull the foot in and out, and they are always sitting right next to the adductor muscles. The foot retractors are like these little bitty white tubes, and usually when you dissect a clam, they're not super noticeable because they're so small. But they are little white tubes. If you don't butcher the clam trying to get it open, then usually you can see those adductor muscles. And then the last thing is if we put the bun, let me pick this back up and slide it back over. If we put it all together, of course you can't have a burger without ketchup. Where the shells are hooked together, you'll know a shell hooks together right here, like this, and when you open it up, there's always going to be a hinge. The hinge is what allows this thing to actually open and close. So if you put a hinge, that's the line of ketchup right there, then the hinge is basically on the dorsal end of this organism. So this is dorsal where the hinge is. Think about it. Any door to a room has a hinge. So that makes sense. Dorsal and hinge. So the dorsal edge is where the hinge is located. And then if you close this burger back up, let me put my palps back in on this side because we've got to have all 4 of them in there. Then you've got the dorsal edge. The opposite of dorsal is ventral. So where the foot is sticking out is going to be our ventral edge, where that dark edge is. And then the anterior end is going to be where you see the earrings sticking out. Those are the onions. and then that's the anterior, then this side has to be the posterior. And that is how a clam is like a burger.